This happened a few months ago. I'm Mark, a technician at NASA. I'd been working there for about 5 years, and I thought it would be exciting. Instead, it felt boring. I was busy with inventory checks, looking at the same dust-covered boxes, but I found something that changed everything. One day, as I shuffled through old reports, a document caught my eye. It was about a ship recovered 8 years ago, filled with corpses. My heart raced. I felt a chill run through me. The corpses were described as bizarre and perfectly preserved. How could that even happen? The report suggested something terrible happened out there. It seemed like a lab mistake at first, but I couldn't ignore the dread growing in my stomach. Some findings had been kept secret. I felt uneasy all day. Was that ship still out there? I risked a glance out the window. I saw the dark edge of the nearby forest, where the ship lay abandoned. Suddenly I got cold. I shook the feeling off and stepped outside for a break. The air felt heavy. It weighed me down as I walked near the tall trees. I couldn't shake the impression they were watching me. The next day, I went back to the findings. I asked a few colleagues about the ship, but their responses felt strange. They hesitated, exchanging nervous glances before whispering to each other. I didn't understand why they acted like this around me. I noticed people wouldn't speak too loudly when I was nearby, almost like I was a threat. Each time I returned to my desk, anxiety crept in. Equipment malfunctioned around me, lights flickered, and once, someone murmured, "Don't ask," low enough for only me to hear. Days went by, and I became obsessed. I had to know what those corpses were. Were they early astronauts? Was this a cover-up? The more I dug, the odd behaviors of everyone made my stomach turn. They avoided the topic or became jittery when I asked about it. I felt paranoid, like someone was watching me, waiting for me to slip up. One night I decided to check the ship myself. I grabbed a flashlight and slipped into the dark forest before anyone noticed. It was silent, and the cold seeped into my bones. Sweat dripped down my back. I kept telling myself it was just an old wreck, but dread filled me. When I found the ship, it loomed in the darkness, rusted and haunting. My heart raced. Then I heard it. A whisper behind me, brushing my ear. I turned, and nobody was there. Panic clawed at my chest. I stumbled backward, looking everywhere. In the shadows, I felt something shift, like a presence, but I couldn't see it. It felt wrong. I knew I crossed a line. I don't know what I saw or heard that night. All I know is I can't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. Even now, days later, it's like I'm being watched. I can't explain it, but that mystery has become part of my life, and it won't let me go. The following morning, I went to work with a sense of dread. I couldn't focus. My mind replayed the events from the night before. Those whispers, that presence. As I sat at my desk, the hum of machinery felt overwhelming. My heart pounded in my chest. I wanted answers, but the fear tightened my throat. I kept telling myself I had to stay calm. I decided to confront the mystery head-on. I gathered my courage and walked to the conference room where a briefing was scheduled. Maybe someone would finally talk about the ship when they had an audience. Maybe the truth would slip. But when I entered, the atmosphere shifted. My colleagues recognized me instantly. Faces grew pale. Conversations halted. I felt their eyes on me as I took a seat. During the briefing, I tried to focus on the presented charts, but I could not shake the feeling that I was being scrutinized. One of my co-workers, Sarah, a senior technician, kept sneaking glances in my direction, her expression a mix of concern and fear. I leaned towards her. "Why do they act like this?" I whispered. She flinched at my question, biting her lip as if she wanted to say something but couldn't. I pressed her. "Is it about the ship? Were there more findings?" She shook her head sharply, her eyes darting away. "You should forget about it, Mark. Please." Her voice was barely a whisper, filled with urgency. That malaise went to the core of my being. I was growing desperate. After the meeting, I followed Sarah into the hallway. "Why are you all so scared? What do you know?" I asked, frustration spilling out. She hesitated and glanced around, her eyes still wide with panic. Just then, A loud clatter came from the nearby storage room. We jumped, and I turned toward the sound, adrenaline surging. Before I could voice what I was thinking, Sarah grabbed my arm. "We need to go. Now." Her grip was tight, and I felt the urgency radiating from her. "Why? What's in there?" My heart raced and I pulled against her hold, but she was strong. "Please, just trust me." Her voice trembled, but she pulled me down the hall. I tried to protest, but her eyes shifted back toward the storage room. Something was clearly wrong. We turned a corner, and the air shifted again, thick and uneasy. I stopped to catch my breath, but Sarah hurried along. "We shouldn't be here. Justin went in there yesterday, but he didn't come out. I'm scared, Mark." Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. Everything inside me screamed to run back, to get as far away from that storage room as possible. But I felt a pull, a twisted curiosity. What had happened to Justin? As we reached the exit, I turned back for just a second. That's when I noticed a flickering light from the storage room. Hadn't it been locked? My heart sank. "Wait," I called. "I need to—" But Sarah was already outside, fear propelling her forward. I hesitated, the nagging voice in my head warning me not to go back. But Justin was missing. I had to know what was happening, so I turned and headed towards the storage room. The door creaked as I opened it and a wave of cold air hit me. Instinct kicked in. I stepped inside, the light flickering more violently now. My pulse raced, and before I could back away, the door slammed shut behind me, and then everything went dark. I stood in the dark, disoriented. The silence pressed in on me, thick and suffocating. I reached for the door, but it wouldn't budge. Panic gnawed at my insides. I took a deep breath to steady myself and tried to focus. The flickering light returned, illuminating the contours of the room. Equipment lay scattered everywhere, boxes, tools, and old files. I moved cautiously, my footsteps echoing eerily. The light flickered again, casting strange shadows that danced across the walls. That's when I saw it, a shadow in the corner of the room. I froze, holding my breath. My mind raced back to Sarah's words about Justin. What if he was here? Had something happened to him? I squinted into the dimness, straining to see. "Justin?" I called, my voice shaky. No answer. Only silence, thick and oppressive. I stepped closer to the corner, and that's when I felt it. A chill that ran down my spine like ice water. A shape shifted in the corner, and I could see features emerging in the gloom. My pulse quickened as I realized what I was staring at. It was a body, crumpled on the floor. I recoiled, my heart hammering. What had happened? Was this Justin? I took a cautious step forward, trying to make out more detail. The dim light showed the lifeless figure, eyes closed, skin pale and waxy. I could barely breathe. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over a crate, but as I backed away, I caught sight of an object lying on the ground next to the body. My curiosity battled with my fear. I needed to know what it was. I edged closer, my eyes fixed on the shape. An old badge, tarnished but still somewhat legible. I picked it up, carefully brushing off the dust. NASA was etched on it along with a name. Justin Emery. This was him. My stomach knotted with dread. What had happened to him? The whispers filled my mind again, growing louder. I wanted to scream, to run, to escape. But then a heavy thud echoed from further inside the storage room. I turned sharply, gripping the badge tightly. Another shadow appeared, moving in the dark. My breath hitched in my throat. I had to get out of here. Whatever had taken Justin could be coming for me next. My instincts kicked in, and I darted towards the door, slamming my shoulder against it. It held firm, but I kept pushing, desperation fueling my strength. I could hear something breathing behind me, low, ragged breaths that made my skin crawl. Finally, I felt the door give under my weight, and I burst out into the hallway. My legs moved before I fully knew what I was doing. I ran, not looking back. I didn't stop until I was outside, gasping for air, the cold wind biting at my skin. Then I realized I'd dropped the badge. I had just uncovered a part of the truth. but it felt more like a curse than a revelation. I had to find Sarah. She needed to know what I had learned, even if it terrified me. But first, I needed to be sure I was safe. The shadows were still lurking, and something inside me knew the worst was yet to come. I stumbled away from the building, the cold air biting at my skin, but I couldn't focus on that. All that echoed in my mind was Justin, crumpled and lifeless just a few feet away from me. I needed to put distance between that nightmare and myself. I reached the edge of the parking lot, keeping my eyes darting around for any sign of danger. As I caught my breath, a familiar jingle reached my ears. My phone. It was Sarah calling. I hesitated for a moment, a wave of conflicting emotions washing over me. Should I tell her what I found? Would she even believe me? Finally, I answered. "Hello?" My voice was shaky. "Where are you?" she asked, her tone sharp with concern. "I've been trying to reach you." Do I tell her that I found Justin? "I'm still at the site, but something happened. We need to talk. Can you meet me?" "Of course. I'm on my way. Just stay put." I nodded even though she couldn't see me. I wanted to believe that everything would be okay, but anxiety gnawed at me. I glanced back toward the building, the shadows seeming to shift even under the daylight. What if whatever had happened to Justin was still lingering there? After what felt like an eternity, Sarah's car pulled into the lot. I ran to meet her, my pulse racing as I got close. She stepped out, looking concerned, her hair tousled from the wind. "What's going on?" she asked, scanning my face. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Because I really might have," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. "I found Justin's body." Her eyes widened. "What? Are you serious?" "Yeah, I found him in a storage room," I explained, my thoughts spilling out. "And he had this badge." I reached into my pocket, only to realize it was gone. My blood ran cold as I fumbled through my other pockets, feeling the panic rise. I was so focused on escaping that I'd lost the one piece of evidence that tied everything together. "Where is it?" she asked, her brows furrowed. "I dropped it when I got out. I need to go back." "You can't. What if something is still lurking there?" Her voice quaked with urgency. "What if it's—" A loud crash interrupted us, coming from the direction of the building. I whipped around, my heart pounding in my chest. I squinted, but I couldn't see anything. "Was that—" Sarah started. "I don't know," I said, adrenaline flooding my body. "But I need to get back inside. I have to find that badge." "Wait, no. We should call the police or—" "I can't. They won't believe me. Not about what I saw." My mind raced. "I need you to trust me, Sarah. I need you with me." Before she could reply, I dashed toward the entrance, the confidence draining from my face with every step. Shadows flickered at the edges of my vision and a sick feeling clawed at my stomach. Whatever had taken Justin could still be lurking within those walls. "Let's go," I shouted back, urging her to follow me. With one last glance back at Sarah, I forced myself forward, every instinct screaming for me to turn and run. But I wasn't going to abandon Justin's memory or the truth. I had to find out what really happened, even if it meant digging deeper into the darkness. As we stepped back inside the building, the stale air pressed around us. My heart raced, but I couldn't back down now. I needed answers. "We need to find that storage room," I murmured. Sarah stayed close, her breathing heavy as we navigated the cluttered hallway. Fear pooled in my gut, and I could feel her tension beside me. Each step was laden with the memories of what I had just seen. "Are you sure we should be doing this?" she whispered, glancing over her shoulder. I didn't answer. I was too focused on the path ahead. I thought about the badge, the only link to uncovering what had happened to Justin. I remembered its sheen in the dim light, its importance clawing at me. Just then, we approached the door to the storage room. My hand trembled as I reached for the handle. "This is it," I said, swallowing hard. I pushed the door open, the squeak of the hinges sounding impossibly loud. The room was dark, but I could make out the disarray of boxes and equipment scattered all over the floor. A thick layer of dust coated everything. I flicked on my phone's flashlight, the beam cutting through the darkness. There it was. Blood smeared across the floor. Panic surged up my throat as I caught the glint of something on the table. I hurried over and my heart dropped. It was a badge, just like I'd seen before, but it belonged to someone else. Is that? Sarah's voice trembled. I picked it up, my breath hitching in my chest. The name read, Mitchell Carson. I didn't recognize it. Why was it here? Before I could contemplate further, a noise echoed from behind us, making my skin prickle. I whipped around, scanning the dark corners of the room. Did you hear that? I asked, my voice barely rising above a whisper. Yeah, Sarah said, fear creeping into her tone. We need to get out of here. No, I snapped. I need to know what happened here. Her eyes darted around wildly. Let's just go to the car, please. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay focused despite the rising panic. I noticed a file cabinet in the corner. It looked out of place, too organized in this chaotic environment. Let me check this, I said, gripping the handle. The drawer opened with a reluctant squeak, revealing documents inside. I flipped through them, but they were too faded to read. Suddenly, I heard footsteps echoing in the hallway, growing louder. Someone was coming. Someone's here, I gasped. Quick! Sarah grabbed my arm, pulling me back. I froze, instinct screaming at me to run, but my gaze stayed fixed on the files. They might hold clues about Justin, about Mitchell, about whatever darkness was happening here. Just then, the footsteps stopped just outside the door. My pulse quickened as a shadow loomed in the entrance. I couldn't see who it was, but the shape was unmistakably large, blocking out the dim light from the corridor. Get down, I hissed to Sarah. We dropped to the floor just as the door swung open, and everything went dark. I blinked, trying to make sense of the sudden darkness. My heart was pounding, drowning out the sound of my own breath. I sensed Sarah next to me, her presence a steady reminder that we weren't alone, not yet. Just then I heard the shuffle of feet outside the door. What do we do? Sarah whispered, panic rising in her voice. I could feel her tension like a taut string ready to snap. We wait, I replied, though my mind raced. Whoever was out there didn't seem to be in a hurry. I could almost hear their steady breathing, as if they were just as aware of the darkness as we were. The shadow at the entrance turned slightly, and I could hear the faint clink of metal against metal. I could almost feel a chill settle over the room as the figure stepped inside. Mitchell Carson, a deep voice said, low and gravelly. My blood turned to ice. Where are you? I shot Sarah a look of alarm. Who was this? How did they know the name on the badge? I reached for my phone, the intent to light up the room and confront whatever was happening swimming in my mind. Stay still, Sarah whispered urgently, her eyes wide. The figure moved slowly, cautiously, scanning the room. You can't hide from me, the voice continued. It had an edge, a sense of authority laced with something darker. Desperation kicked in. I fumbled for the drawer, hoping to find anything that could explain the situation, anything that might protect us from whatever this was. But I could barely see. My trembling fingers rummaged through the scattered papers. Then, without warning, the light flickered on in the corridor, slicing through the darkness. The figure froze, instantly illuminated. Across the dim threshold, I caught a glimpse of a rugged face crowned with a scruffy beard. His eyes darted around, and I felt a surge of terror as he turned toward the storage room, his expression alert. I know you're in there, he called, stepping forward. Panic clawed at my throat, and I wanted to scream for him to go away, but the words stuck. Sarah clutched my arm tightly, her breath hitching beside me. Do you really think you can get away with it? He sneered, stepping into the room. My stomach dropped, and I squeezed Sarah's hand tighter, desperate to keep her calm. Who are you? I finally managed to say, my voice coming out weaker than I'd hoped. He smirked, and it sent chills down my spine. The one who's asking questions, just like you. His eyes narrowed, scanning the room, flicking past the files scattered at our feet. What did you find? I hesitated, torn between revealing what I knew and shoring up against whatever madness lay in front of me. We didn't find anything, I lied, hoping it would buy us some time. He stepped closer, the shadows deepening around him. I know better. You think you can play games? I don't have time for this. Before I could think of a response, he lunged toward us. I reacted instinctively and shoved the nearest object, a rusty metal pipe, into his path. It clattered against the floor, distracting him just long enough. "Run!" I shouted at Sarah, pushing her hard toward the door. As I scrambled to follow, I caught the fleeting sight of the badge lying underfoot, still bearing Mitchell Carson's name. My heart dropped again. Was this all connected? Why did it matter? We burst through the doorway, sprinting down the corridor, but the sound of heavy footsteps echoed behind us. We needed to get out, before he caught up. I didn't know where we were headed, but with every ounce of adrenaline, I propelled us forward into the unknown. "Keep going," I yelled, but the moment I turned the corner, everything changed. I ran into an expansive room and the stark brightness hit me like a wall. I squinted against it, trying to catch my breath. Rows of machinery flickered to life, illuminating the space. My mind was racing. Where were we? There was no time to wonder. I had to focus. "Mitchell," Sarah called out, and I turned to see her frantically searching the room. "What if he finds us?" I gestured for her to come closer. "Just breathe. We need to figure this out." The walls were lined with screens, some displaying cryptic data. Others flashed images of what looked like old photographs. Corpses, the kind that didn't look human. "Look at this," Sarah whispered, pointing. I stepped closer, my heart in my throat. One image showed a figure, emaciated and misshapen, lying on a metal slab. Below it, a bold label read, "Experiment R4562. I stumbled back, my mind reeling. What is this? Why are there bodies? I don't know, but we can't stick around to find out. Suddenly, the heavy footfalls echoed again. They were closer this time. Panic washed over me as I realized that whatever that man was looking for, it had to be in this room. I glanced at the nearest exit. It was too far. "Quick, over here!" I urged Sarah, leading her behind a row of equipment. I could hear the footsteps stopping near the doorway. I hoped he hadn't seen us. "Mitchell," Sarah whispered. "They can't be dead, right? What if they're just asleep?" I shot her a look. "In that case, we need to make sure they stay asleep." The footsteps resumed and dread pooled in my stomach. We needed a plan, but I was struggling to think clearly. "Look," Sarah pointed to a control panel. "Can you make sense of any of this?" I rushed over, my fingers flying over the buttons as I tried to decipher the alien symbols on the screen. "If we can just shut this down." But the door slammed open, and the man from before stepped in, his eyes scanning the room. "I know you're here." We froze. I had only a split second to react. In my periphery, I spotted a large metal panel beside the control board. It was a gamble, but we had no real choices left. I grabbed Sarah's arm and pulled her toward it, hiding behind its bulk just as he entered. "Where are you hiding?" he growled, stepping deeper into the room. I held my breath and waited for the sound of footsteps to get closer. My heart raced, and I could feel Sarah trembling beside me. Then I saw it. The door at the back of the room opened a crack. Shadows shifted inside. Maybe there was another way out. "Sarah," I murmured, my instincts kicking in. "When I say go, we're heading for that door." "Okay," she whispered back. The man's attention was still on our hiding spot, but I could see the curiosity shift into frustration on his face. "Tell me what you found and I might let you both leave," he said. I exchanged a look with Sarah. My mouth turned dry. There was no way out of this without revealing too much. "Just stay quiet," I whispered. But just as I prepared to make a break for it, a strange noise echoed from behind the panel. I turned, my breath catching. "I know there's something here," the man snarled, approaching. Then everything went still. That's when I saw it. A glimmering object on the floor. It looked like something out of a sci-fi movie. A small device pulsing softly, covered in dust. My mind raced with terrifying possibilities. "Mitchell, what is that?" Sarah gasped. For the first time, I felt true dread. I didn't have the answers, but I knew one thing. Whatever that device was, we had stumbled into something much bigger than either of us could handle. I was frozen in place, staring at that small device. It pulsed gently, almost as if it were alive. Fear twisted my insides. What was it doing here? "Mitchell, we need to go," Sarah urged, her voice a harsh whisper. "Now." But the sound of my heartbeat drowned out her words. The man slowly moved closer, investigating the area around us. If he found us, it would be over. "He can't find us here," I murmured, squeezing Sarah's arm tighter. Just then, the device emitted a soft beep, shattering the tension in the air. The man froze, his head snapping toward the sound. "What was that?" "It's a malfunction," I quickly muttered, hoping to convince both him and myself. Another beep broke through the silence, louder this time. The man was moving toward it with purpose. "You think you can hide from me?" he growled. "Mitchell," Sarah urged again, real fear creeping into her tone. "We can't stay here." Okay, on 3. I took a deep breath, feeling sweat bead on my forehead. 1, 2, 3. We bolted from behind the metal panel, aiming straight for the back door. I glanced at the man, who was momentarily entranced by the device. We might have a chance. But before we reached the door, he shouted, "Stop! You think you can run away?" I felt a jolt of adrenaline. The doorknob was just within reach. I yanked it open and pulled Sarah through, slamming it behind us. We stumbled into a dim hallway lit only by flickering fluorescent lights. "Where do we go now?" Sarah gasped, panic evident in her eyes. "Just keep running," I said, glancing behind us. I could already hear his footsteps pounding behind me, gaining ground. "We need to find a way out of this place." The hall twisted and turned, disorienting me. Each door we passed was locked, adding to my frustration. I desperately pushed against another door, but it wouldn't budge. "Mitchell," Sarah cried, tugging at my sleeve. "This way." She pointed to an opening further down the hallway, partly obscured by shadows. I nodded, and we dashed toward it just as the man burst through the door behind us. I could hear him cursing as he realized we'd slipped away. We turned into the darkened space, hoping it was a safe haven. Inside the room, the air was cold and musty. I barely had time to register the rows of large containers lining the walls before Sarah pulled me deeper inside. "Look," she said, her eyes wide. "Those containers. Could they hold something?" I stepped closer, my heart racing with both fear and curiosity. Each container was labeled with numbers, similar to the ones we saw earlier, experiments and codes. I could barely read them, but the feeling in the pit of my stomach grew heavier with every step I took. Then a low hum began to resonate from one of the containers. "What is that?" I hissed, taking a step back. Before I could think, the latch on the nearest container clicked open. We both stared in disbelief as it slowly creaked open. I had a feeling we were about to discover something we never wanted to know. "Mitchell, we have to leave," Sarah cried, grabbing my arm. But I was rooted to the spot. The hum grew louder, and I could see movement inside. We were not alone. I had to know. "No, wait," I whispered, stepping closer. Just then I heard the man's voice echoing down the hall, furious and searching. "You can't hide from me forever." And in that moment, I realized that whatever was inside that container might be our only chance to escape, if we could figure out what it was before he found us again. The container door swung open, revealing darkness within. The hum intensified, vibrating through the air and resonating in my chest. I peered over the edge, half expecting something monstrous to leap out at me. Instead, I saw a deep void, shadowy figures barely outlined in the murky light. "Mitchell," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "We really need to go. He's getting closer." But I couldn't look away. What lay inside might be our best shot. I reached in, feeling the cool metal of something inside, but just as my fingers brushed against it, a bone-chilling scream tore through the air. It wasn't just a sound. It felt like it clawed its way into my brain. "Get back." Sarah yanked me away, pulling me further into the room. "We have to hide." My heart raced. But what if it can help us? What if those containers hold answers? Another scream echoed down the hallway, louder this time. The man was close, forcing us to make a decision fast. I could hear his footsteps slapping against the concrete closer now. Then suddenly a light flashed behind us, illuminating the shadows. My breath caught in my throat as I saw what had produced the sound. A creature unlike anything I'd ever seen before, its skin pale and stretched over what appeared to be skeletal features. It was nothing more than a husk, but it drew me in. "I don't think it's alive," I whispered, trying to reassure myself more than Sarah. "Mitchell, it could still be dangerous," she exclaimed, her voice rising. "We have to hide now." The man's voice thundered down the hall. "I know you're in here. You can't escape." I glanced back at the container. "We can't just leave it. What if there's something in here that can stop him?" "Like what?" Sarah shouted, her eyes wide with fear. "You want to gamble our lives on a guess?" Before I could argue, the lights flickered and went dark. Panic gripped me as I stumbled forward, my hands searching for anything to hold on to. Then came a loud crash. The door I had just slammed shut was flung open. "Found you!" the man's voice boomed. I could hear him moving around the room, stomping on the floor, rummaging through containers. Sarah and I pressed ourselves against the wall, our hearts racing in sync. "Shh," I whispered urgently. "Let's wait him out." But it was too late. The light flickered back on, and I saw him stand there, barely a few feet away, eyes scanning the room. Then everything went dark again. The power cut, leaving us in a suffocating void. "Mitchell," Sarah whispered fiercely. "What do we do?" The sound of footsteps echoed from multiple directions. I felt my pulse race. Something was moving around us, but I didn't know where to look. Fear clawed at my throat as I strained to hear. The door burst open, and for a moment, I saw a glimpse of a tall figure inside the shadows. I knew then that we were not alone. Not just with the man chasing us, but with whatever had stirred inside the container. I turned to Sarah. "If we don't move now, we'll miss our chance." "I'm right behind you," she said firmly, her resolve echoing in the darkness. But I wasn't about to head back toward the light without a plan. I had to know what was in that container before we tried to escape again. As I took a shaky breath, the humming resumed, and I stepped forward, feeling the weight of decisions pressing on me. Whatever's in here is our only shot, I thought, trying to convince myself. Before I could reach the edge, a chilling voice whispered, "You shouldn't have come here." I froze, dread washing over me. What have we stumbled into? I barely had time to react. Panic surged through me as I spun around, heart racing. The voice echoed in the darkness, intertwining with the hum from the container. "You shouldn't have come here," it repeated, unnervingly calm. "Mitchell, we need to go," Sarah urged, her grip tightening on my arm. But I found myself rooted to the spot, a magnet to the unsettling reality surrounding us. I glanced back towards the container. The hum pulsed in rhythm with an unexplainable dread, and I felt drawn in, as if the darkness was alive, enticing me to uncover its secrets. "Help me understand," I whispered, biting at my lower lip, unwilling to let go of the question plaguing my mind. Who was hidden inside? What answers did those containers hold? I moved toward the edge, ignoring Sarah's pleas. Suddenly, the lights flickered back to life, illuminating the figure that had spoken. It was gaunt, eyes sunken deep within its skull-like structure, body seemingly skeletal, yet eerily alive. My breath hitched as it spoke again. "Curiosity can be a dangerous trait. That's not human," Sarah said, her voice trembling at my side. "We need to leave." "We can't just abandon this," I replied, a mix of fear and curiosity tingling in my spine. My gaze flicked between the creature and the hallway, already hearing the distant approach of the man sounding off his threat. Every instinct told me to run, yet the need to uncover the truth clawed at me. The creature remained unnervingly still, but its depthless eyes bore into mine. "You seek truth, but truth is never what you expect it to be." Before I could respond, the door at the end of the room burst open again, and the man stepped through, eyes wide with fury and desperation. "I told you not to hide," he roared, moving deeper into the room. I jerked my head toward Sarah. "There's no choice now, we have to split up," I said, feeling an adrenaline rush. I'll lead him out while you find a way to the surface. Mitchell! Go! I interrupted, already calculating my next move. I ran toward the swirling darkness of the containers, hoping it would buy Sarah time to escape. The man's eyes flickered to me, and with a primal growl he lunged forward. I narrowly dodged his grasp and ducked behind the nearest container, fear coursing through my veins as I stumbled into new shadows. "Where are you?" he shouted, an ominous threat lacing his voice. I could hear the rage building behind his words, mixing with the echoes from the containers. "Get out of here, Sarah!" I yelled, trying to draw his attention. But the creature I had encountered stared at me, wisdom and warning swirling in its gaze. The surroundings blurred as I navigated through the maze of containers. I could hear Sarah's hurried footsteps fading, and a part of me screamed in protest. But it was too late. I turned around to confront the man, heart thumping in my chest. "I'm right here!" I shouted, stepping out with defiance. A fleeting moment of courage surged through me as I faced him. The shadows played tricks on my mind, the creature's words reverberating within me. "Stop," he commanded, voice thick with irritation. "Tell me what you found." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my options crush me. "What did you do to Justin?" I demanded, anger mixing with the fear that pulsed in my veins. A flicker of surprise crossed his face, but it morphed quickly into a sinister grin. "You're too late. You shouldn't have come snooping around. You don't know what you're getting into." As he rushed toward me, I dodged again, but this time my back hit against a wall. The sound of creaking echoed ominously, and I realized it was the container beside me. With a surge of courage, I grasped its handle. "You think I'll only let you go?" he sneered. "You need to understand the truth about this place." I didn't care to let him finish. I opened the container, heart racing, and revealed its horrifying contents. Inside lay a form, just like the creature, partially encased in a translucent liquid-filled chamber. "Look at it!" I shouted, pointing. "What did you do?" The shadows closed in around us, as the creature's hum intensified, piercing the tension in the air. The man's face twisted into fury, but before he could react, the resonance of the chamber transformed into a pulse, illuminating the room with a bright light. The man staggered back, disbelief filling his eyes as it felt like energy surged through the space. Was it protecting us? I didn't have time to consider. It was now or never. "Run!" I screamed, leading the way. I pushed past him and he swiped at me, barely grazing my arm. "You won't get away!" he yelled, but I didn't look back. I could hear a soft thud, and the resonance echoing behind me. Sarah must have found a route. "Mitchell!" her voice called out, finally breaking through my panic. "This way!" I tore down the corridor, the pulse of energy from the chamber transforming into a rhythm that quickened my steps, propelling me forward. I darted into the closest exit, my fingers grazing the handle just as I felt impact, a force rushing past me. I burst through into the outside air, not even stopping to take a breath before turning to look for Sarah. "Sarah!" I shouted. I couldn't see her. The shadows flickered behind me, pulling at me, but I fought against them. "Where are you?" Suddenly she emerged, wide-eyed, and grasped my hand. "We did it," she gasped. "But they'll come after us. What if they do? What if we've awakened something we shouldn't have?" "Then we'll find a way," she said. "We can't give up. Not now." Together, we hurried away from that dark place, unsure of what we had really disrupted, but knowing one thing: the night was far from over, and the mystery would linger, twisting itself into our thoughts even in the safety of daylight. As we drove back, nothing made sense. The truth still hid in shadows. Questions burned in my mind. Was it just a lab disaster? Or was it something far more unsettling? We moved on, but some part of me would always feel like a crackling energy, a shiver returning to that night of shadows. I still think about it sometimes. I wonder about the decisions made, the lives intertwined, and that relentless echo of the unknown lurking just out of sight.